Obama truth. Philosophy. Number 4. Socialism. Now, we've heard an awful lot in the last few days, and here we are in the last 2 weeks of the election, about Barack Obama, is he a socialist? There are a number of indicators that we can look at for this. The first one is the spread the wealth comment. Now, I'll be the first to admit that a random comment about spreading wealth is hardly enough to justify calling a man a socialist. However, when you hide yourself from the press, limit the questions, limit the answers, parse the answers, talk around the answers, give talking points, and your campaign doesn't do any better. But finally, on the street, one day, unawares, caught in a glib moment, a person comes to you out of the blue and asks you a question and says, "What is your plan for me?" And you say, "My plan for you is to give you a tax cut until you reach a certain level, and then I'm going to take your money and spread the wealth around." Paraphrasing, but pretty close. Everything was good up until that point, that I will give you a tax cut up until a certain level, then I'm going to take your money and spread the wealth around. Wouldn't it be nice if the guy behind you got some money? The answer to that for a lot of people is no. That's not okay with me. And many people will be aghast and say, "Oh, you don't want your money given to other people." No, I do not. Maybe I would like to keep that for me and spend it my way. You know, this election is really not about the economy. This election is about ideology. I say that the fundamentals of the economy are strong. The fundamentals being capitalism, hard work, creativity. This country is strong for that. Greed? Yes, plenty of greed. And that's been here for 200 years. Has there been picking on the little guy? That goes on in every country, in every system, whether capitalist or socialist. It doesn't matter. Now, let's move on to point 2, the bottom-up economics. Bottom-up economics. Economics only works one of 2 ways. Either the fella at the top gives you a job, or the government gives you a job. But the worker himself does not make a job for himself that he pays himself, unless then he becomes the boss and he is the boss over other people. So, Obama's already said he wants the government to provide those jobs which will not be given by the wealthy because they will be taxed more or they'll move out of the country to avoid it. So the government will be involved in creating jobs. Question being, how good is the government at creating jobs? I don't mean bureaucracies, I mean real paying jobs. Department of Transportation, that's a joke. Department of Motor Vehicles, that's a joke. Most of the departments are jokes. So, Department of Green Energy sounds like a joke. We know that the creativity for green energy will come from the private sector. And we know that when they're rewarded, they'll work harder. But when the government's giving a handout, I've said handout, when the government's giving a salary to a worker in the green energy, that person is going to be like a union worker. And I was in a union, and I know half the people work hard and the other half live off of the people who work hard. Everybody in the union knows that. Which brings me to point 3, unions. He wants strong unions, Obama does, and he wants unions that are able to be created spontaneously by agitation in the workplace. I don't think that's a good sign, but beyond that, I think that is also a sign of socialism. So far we have spread the wealth around, government running organizations, creating jobs, giving salaries that are not going to be very high. I don't know what they're going to offer. Perhaps that's an assumption on my part. But as far as I can see, the green jobs, the way I envision the government is everybody's wearing a green uniform and getting money. And all I can picture is Castro's Cuba. We also have health care. Now, I know Obama says it's not government-run health care, but it is government-run health care, more than it is now. Certainly we can say, but wait, it's not the way you picture it. It's not going to be a banana republic healthcare. It'll be like Canada. I have friends in Canada. They hate the healthcare system. It'll be like Sweden. It'll be so good. Except that Sweden probably pays, 70% in taxes? If you don't have the tax base, you're not going to get the services. And if you don't have the participation of the people in the country, you're not going to get the taxes. So it's not a well thought out plan. Besides the fact that bottom-up economics without the government giving the jobs is a proletariat type of an economy, which is communism. And I'm not saying he's a communist. I'm saying you're either saying government work programs or communism. One of the two. One is socialist and one is communist. Now the last thing is, are we making too big a deal out of it? Is socialism good for the country? Here's the problem. Socialism is, by definition, the economic policy of communism, because it is spreading the wealth around. Here is the danger. You cannot really have socialism without taking the step towards communism. Religion suffers, free speech suffers. If we look at some of the countries that have instituted socialism, and we don't have time to go through them all now, and there's plenty of great websites, we'll see that religion has suffered and free speech has suffered. Gun laws have suffered also. I'm a big constitutional defender, whether or not I believe in all of the amendments. We should not treat this document lightly, but we should study it and find out what it was the Founding Fathers wanted us to do. Socialism was not what they wanted us to do, the government in charge. They wanted the people in charge. If we read the Constitution, we'll see there's a caveat that when the government gets out of control, the people have the constitutional right to rise up and change the government, by force if necessary. So they knew what they were talking about. Remember, socialism doesn't allow that, and communism really doesn't allow that. So before we go one way or the other and say, ooh, socialism, good, or you're too hard on socialism, let's look at it for what it is, and then let's examine whether that's what we really want, not just this moment with our hand out saying, give me another $400, because that extra few $100 isn't worth the price of freedom.